Jungkook broke down in tears after Taehyung ignored him on stage. What Army saw wasn't scripted, and what happened backstage changed everything. "Don't touch me." Taehyung's voice cut through the electrified silence of the stadium, a whisper sharpened by the unforgiving clarity of his mic. The lights shimmered golden over a sea of waving Army bombs, but the brightness only made Jungkook's face more visible, more exposed. His hand, once reaching out with a familiar warmth toward Taehyung's shoulder, now hung frozen in the air, trembling ever so slightly. The crowd didn't notice at first. The choreography was supposed to be intimate. Taehyung and Jungkook were meant to share that fleeting glance, that dramatic shoulder touch before the beat dropped. But Taehyung didn't glance. He didn't even flinch. He just stepped forward, leaving Jungkook behind as the intro to their final song thundered into the night. Jungkook blinked. Once, twice. Then he smiled, a professional smile, all teeth and no soul, and followed the routine. But his timing was off. His spin came a beat too late. His voice cracked during the chorus. And when he turned to face the others for the final bow, Taehyung's back was already retreating toward the wings. That wasn't in the script. Backstage, chaos erupted like wildfire under a curtain of forced laughter. Stylists swarmed, staff whispered. The rest of the members glanced between the two like they were watching a fragile dam about to collapse. Jungkook stood still in the middle of it all, soaked in sweat, glitter, and humiliation. The smile was still there, but his jaw was locked. His in-ears dangled from one hand. The other hand was clenched into a pale fist. "Hyung?" he called out, barely audible. Taehyung didn't look back. His leather jacket was already half off as he disappeared behind a closing black curtain. Not even a word. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Jungkook's breath hitched. His body moved on instinct off stage, down the narrow corridor toward their dressing room. The laughter and cheers of the crowd echoed behind him, eerily distant now, like applause at a funeral. Inside the dressing room, the air was heavy with perfume, hairspray, and unspoken tension. Taehyung stood with his back turned, head bowed over the table where his rings and earrings were strewn in chaos. He was undoing them one by one, slowly, deliberately, as if peeling off a version of himself he no longer wanted to wear. "Why did you do that?" Jungkook's voice came out hoarse. "No answer. I asked you something." Still, silence. Jungkook's throat burned. "Was that your way of sending a message? Ignoring me in front of the whole damn world?" Taehyung finally turned, slowly, as if the effort pained him. His eyes were unreadable, dark lashes casting shadows that couldn't conceal the fire smoldering beneath. "You were late," he said. "What?" Taehyung stepped closer, the gap between them shrinking with each word. "You were late to rehearsal. You didn't tell anyone. You didn't reply to the group chat. You showed up 2 hours before the concert and just expected everything to be fine. You think professionalism is about crying on stage?" Jungkook's lips parted, but nothing came out. "I had to change the setlist because of you. I had to cover for your verse during soundcheck. I asked you if you were okay, and you ghosted everyone. And tonight?" Taehyung let out a dry laugh. "Tonight, you smiled like nothing happened." "It wasn't on purpose," Jungkook murmured. I wasn't okay. I couldn't talk. I didn't know how." "Then don't pretend like everything's fine," Taehyung snapped. "Because I can't keep pretending with you." Jungkook felt it then, the unmistakable sting behind his eyes. His chest ached, as if something ancient and fragile inside him had just cracked down the middle. "I wasn't pretending," he whispered. "I was surviving." The silence, after that, felt thicker than the air before a storm. Taehyung's face twitched, something unreadable flickering across it, but only for a moment. Then his jaw set again, cold and immovable. "You should go rest. We've got press tomorrow." And just like that, he turned away again. But this time, Jungkook didn't chase after him. He didn't move. He didn't even breathe. He simply stood there, eyes brimming, lips pressed into a shaking line, and let the tears fall quiet, burning, and absolutely real. Outside, the fans screamed his name. Inside, Jungkook cried for something that had broken long before the spotlight ever hit them. The next morning came with a blinding kind of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that screamed beneath your skin. The kind that clung to the ceiling, to the windows, to every object in the room like a memory you couldn't erase. The sun had barely risen, but Jungkook was already sitting upright on the edge of his hotel bed, his body rigid and cold, even under layers of blanket and breathless confusion. The replay in his mind wouldn't stop. Taehyung's voice, the way he turned his back, the phrase, "You think professionalism is about crying on stage?" repeated like a broken record. Every time Jungkook blinked, he saw Taehyung walking away, his silhouette swallowed by a curtain that now felt like a wall between them. A soft knock startled him. He didn't answer. The knock came again, firmer this time. "Jungkook." "Ah," came Yoongi's voice, muffled through the door. "We're leaving for the interview in 30 minutes. Manager said you didn't pick up." "I'm not going," Jungkook replied, voice hollow. Pause. Then Yoongi said quietly, "He's not going either." Jungkook looked up. That one sentence made his heart lurch. The silence was no longer just his. "Do they know?" Jungkook asked. There was a pause again. "No one wants to talk about it," Yoongi said finally. "But they noticed." He left it at that. The door never opened. Jungkook never got up. The world continued on its own, louder and more merciless than ever. And yet he stayed in the same position, gripping his phone in his hand like it could somehow rewind the night before. He opened their group chat. Taehyung hadn't sent anything. The last message from him was 3 days ago, just a thumbs-up emoji reacting to a video J-Hope had posted of them rehearsing. He typed a message, "Can we talk?" Then deleted it. He tried again. "I'm sorry for yesterday." Deleted. He stared at the empty chat box for a long time, until it was lunchtime, and the walls felt too close. He eventually left the room. But he didn't go to the interview. He didn't go to the post-show debrief. He didn't respond to the stylists when they asked if he was okay. He didn't say anything until he saw Taehyung again, standing alone in the hallway outside the hotel's private conference room, scrolling through his phone like nothing happened. And that made Jungkook snap. He walked right up to him, not bothering to check if anyone was watching. The hallway smelled of cologne, sweat, and expensive silence. Taehyung didn't even lift his eyes as Jungkook approached. "You ignored me on stage," Jungkook said sharply, "then ignored me again backstage. And now you're just pretending none of it matters?" Taehyung looked up slowly. His face was unreadable. "It doesn't matter to you?" Jungkook added, louder now. "Is that it?" Taehyung pocketed his phone, leaned back against the wall, and said flatly, "You're the one who shut down first." "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" Taehyung asked. "You disappear for days, then show up like a ghost. Expect me to be fine with it? You want honesty, Jungkook? Fine. I don't know who you are anymore when the cameras are off." Jungkook felt like he'd been punched. "I've been struggling, Taehyung," he said, voice shaking. "I've been drowning." "Then say that," Taehyung snapped. "Say something. Don't just vanish and hope I read your mind." They were too loud. Jungkook realized it too late. A makeup artist hurried by and froze mid-step. A staff member paused near the corner. Their voices, no matter how private they wanted them to be, were now public enough to stain everything. But Jungkook couldn't stop now. "I needed space," he shouted. "I was exhausted, broken." "You're not the only one who's tired," Taehyung shouted back. "I've been carrying your silence like it's my fault." Jungkook's chest heaved. His vision blurred again, but this time with rage, not sadness. "So that's what I am to you now? A burden?" Taehyung's mouth opened, then shut. His silence this time was louder than any insult. And then Jungkook did something he never thought he'd do in public. He slapped the ID lanyard off Taehyung's chest, letting it drop to the floor with a harsh clang. The hallway gasped. "You know what hurts the most?" Jungkook said, voice a low tremble. "Not that you ignored me. Not that you embarrassed me in front of millions. It's that I would have forgiven you anyway. But you didn't even ask." And with that, he turned around and walked away. This time, it was Taehyung who didn't chase him. 3 hours later, the hashtag number Taehyung or Jungkook was trending in 7 countries. Fan videos had already dissected the awkward stage moment. Slow-mo frames showing the exact second Jungkook's expression cracked under the lights. Conspiracy threads multiplied by the minute. Back in their respective rooms, the two of them scrolled through the same chaos. Same posts, same clips, same questions. But they didn't text each other. Not once. Instead, Jungkook sat by the window of his room, the city lights reflecting in his glassy eyes, and whispered to no one. Why did it have to be him? And somewhere, 2 floors below, Taehyung stood on the balcony, cigarette burning forgotten between his fingers, and muttered to the wind, "You didn't have to make me choose between being your friend and being your shield." The night settled heavily across Tokyo, and the silence between them turned into something more permanent than either of them was ready to admit. The press conference began without warning, without smiles, without jokes, without even the scripted icebreaker the label had prepared. The 7 chairs were all filled, their names printed in neat black letters across white cards. But the room itself felt colder than the sterile LED lights above them. Jungkook didn't want to speak. Neither did Taehyung. And that silence, their silence, was louder than any reporter's question. RM, ever the diplomat, was the first to step up and respond to the expected inquiries. Global chart success, new solo projects, upcoming world tour adjustments. But the real storm was brewing beneath the table, between the youngest and the one who used to be his shadow on stage. Taehyung kept his arms folded, jaw locked, gaze distant. Jungkook kept tapping his foot, trying not to look 2 chairs over where Taehyung sat, like a statue carved out of resentment. The moderator cleared his throat, and with a rehearsed smile, turned to Jungkook. Jungkook, fans noticed a slight change in stage chemistry during last night's concert. Do you want to address that? The room snapped to attention. Even the cameras tilted ever so slightly, suddenly aware the interview had found its pulse. Jungkook blinked. He could lie. He could give the standard, "We were tired," excuse. He could shift the focus back to the music. That's what they trained for. That's what professionalism meant. But the pressure had been building since last night, since the curtain fell, since Taehyung left him standing there like a stranger in front of millions. Jungkook took the mic, and against every PR rule, against every ounce of survival instinct, he said, "Something went wrong last night, and I think fans deserve the truth." Taehyung's head turned, slow and sharp. Jungkook didn't stop. "I was late to rehearsal. I shut down on the team. I thought I could just walk back in and perform like nothing happened. That was my mistake. But I also didn't expect to be humiliated live, in front of everyone I love performing for." The audience, journalist, label staff, even other members froze. Namjoon's eyes widened just a bit. Jimin inhaled through his teeth. Hoseok looked down. Taehyung's face stayed unreadable. The moderator tried to move on, voice shaky. Thank you, Jungkook. Next question?" "I'm not done," Jungkook said. The room went quiet again. He turned his body slightly, not to face the crowd but Taehyung. His voice lowered, but the mic caught every syllable. "You said I wasn't the person you knew anymore. Maybe that's true. But I need you to understand I've been carrying things I can't explain. Things that weigh so heavy some days I can't even sing. And I didn't tell you because I thought you'd be disappointed." Taehyung stared at him. His lips parted slightly. But still, he said nothing. "I never expected you to shield me," Jungkook continued. "But I never thought you'd be the first to walk away either." The last sentence cracked something. In the room, in the press, in Taehyung. Because finally he moved. Taehyung leaned into his mic. "I didn't walk away," he said, voice quiet but sharp as a blade. "You left before I did. You were gone long before that stage. You stopped showing up, not just physically, but emotionally. I was standing there alone for weeks before that concert." The moderator waved frantically off camera, but no one was listening now. This wasn't an interview anymore. This was detonation. "You should have told me," Taehyung added. "Instead, you made me the villain." "You humiliated me," Jungkook shot back. "You punished me for hurting in silence." "Then maybe next time," Taehyung hissed, "you should bleed out louder." That line hit like a slap across the face, the kind that doesn't sting immediately but leaves a bruise deep under the skin. The moderator stepped in. "Let's take a short break." They didn't even wait for the cameras to cut. Jungkook stood first, almost knocking his chair over. His fists were clenched. His face was burning. Not from shame, from something deeper, betrayal that felt too familiar. Taehyung followed a beat later, walking in the opposite direction. They didn't speak for the rest of the day. Until midnight, when Jungkook returned to the practice room on the 12th floor of the company building, dark, empty, echoing with the ghosts of better days, he found Taehyung already there, sitting on the floor, no shoes, just headphones on, staring at the mirror. "I thought you'd be at the hotel," Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung didn't look up. "I couldn't sleep." Neither could Jungkook. He sat down across from him, legs crossed, unsure of what to say anymore. After a long silence, Taehyung pulled off his headphones and said, "I didn't mean that line today. The bleed out louder part. Yes, you did, Jungkook replied. But that's okay. I meant my part too. A beat passed. Taehyung turned his face slightly. You know, the first time I saw you cry was during our trainee days. You hid in the corner of the stairwell and thought no one noticed. You were 13. I stood there and listened for 10 minutes before walking away. I still hate myself for that. Jungkook's eyes widened. You never told me that. I thought being tough meant pretending not to see weakness, Taehyung said. But maybe the real strength is saying something, even if it's messy. Jungkook laughed bitterly. Well, we were messy today. We were honest. Silence again. Then Jungkook said, Do you think we can fix this? Taehyung didn't answer immediately. His hand reached into his jacket and pulled out a crumpled note. He tossed it over. Jungkook opened it. It was written in shaky handwriting. He's hurting. Don't make him hurt alone. Yoongi. They both stared at it. I guess he was tired of our Cold War, Taehyung murmured. Jungkook folded the note carefully. Then, for the first time in days, he smiled. Not for the cameras, not for the stage, but because something cracked open inside him. And the air felt different. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a start. It started with a vibration, just a single buzz from Jungkook's phone lying on the floor of the dance studio. Then another, and another, until the sound became unbearable. Notifications piled like snow in a storm, unrelenting, suffocating. Jungkook didn't want to check, but instinct made his fingers reach out. And the second he unlocked his screen, the breath caught in his throat. A video, a shaky clip from a hidden backstage angle. The moment Taehyung turned his back on him on stage. Jungkook's face in perfect focus, his hand frozen in midair. The second, his smile cracked and fell away like a mask shattering. The clip had captions now. Did V really ignore Jungkook? Jungkook's reaction wasn't acting. This was not part of the script. Millions of views, tens of thousands of comments. Armies divided, defending or attacking. Some blamed Jungkook's unprofessionalism. Others called Taehyung cold and heartless. But worst of all, the hashtags were back. Louder, crueler. Number, protect Jungkook. Number, Taehyung apologize. Number, BTS's stage drama. Number, is BTS falling apart? Taehyung hadn't seen it yet. Jungkook looked up from the phone. Taehyung was still sitting a few feet away, eyes shut, lost in the low hum of the old studio speakers. For a moment, Jungkook thought of not telling him. Maybe if they ignored it, it would die down. But the truth always had claws. They leaked it, Jungkook said quietly. Taehyung opened his eyes slowly, brows knitting in confusion.
What?
The stage footage. The part where you turned away. Taehyung stared at him for a long beat. No one was filming backstage. Apparently someone was. A pause. Then Taehyung stood up. His hands were shaking. He took Jungkook's phone, watched the clip, watched it again. The silence in the room thickened with each passing second. They don't know what happened before that, Taehyung finally muttered. They never do, Jungkook said. Taehyung looked up. Are you mad it's out? Jungkook paused. I'm mad that it's real. That answer made Taehyung flinch. Jungkook stood, now facing him fully. You know what hurts, Young? That they saw the worst of us before we even had the chance to fix it ourselves. I didn't want to humiliate you, Taehyung said defensively. But you did. Silence. Taehyung lowered his eyes. I was angry and scared. Of what? That I was losing you, Taehyung confessed. You kept pulling away. First in the group chat, then in rehearsals, then even when you stood beside me. You were somewhere else. I didn't know how to reach you anymore. And when you showed up late that day like nothing happened, I snapped. Jungkook's voice dropped. Why didn't you just ask me why I disappeared? Because I thought I already knew. Their voices dropped to a hush, but the tension stayed, thick as fog. Taehyung sat back down. His voice was quieter now, like he was unpeeling something raw from inside his chest. You want to know the worst part? He said. I watched the clip, and even I hated myself. Jungkook didn't know how to respond. He sat beside him, their knees nearly touching, yet still feeling miles apart. I used to be proud that we never needed words, Taehyung continued, that we could read each other with just a glance. But maybe that's the problem. Maybe we started expecting too much and asking too little. Jungkook leaned back on his palms. I kept everything in because I didn't want to be a burden. I thought you had enough to carry. You were part of what I carried, Taehyung said. Not in a bad way, in the way that gave me purpose. Jungkook turned his head toward him, a slow exhale leaving his lips. Then why did it feel like you were punishing me for breaking? Because I didn't know how to help, Taehyung said, his voice cracking. And I hated myself for that too. They sat in that dim room, the air heavy with mistakes and things unsaid. Then came the knock. Not gentle. A staff member peeked in, her face pale. You both need to come upstairs. Now. They followed her silently. Up the elevator, past locked offices, into the top-floor conference room, where their manager, 2 PR heads, and the CEO sat at a long table. No greetings. Just tension. The CEO tapped the screen on the wall. The video played again. Slower. Brutal in its clarity. He paused it on the frame of Jungkook's frozen hand. This is not just a viral moment, he said. This is a brand fracture. We have sponsorships threatened, media outlets calling, and fans asking for public statements. Jungkook swallowed hard. Taehyung stared at the screen like it was a gun aimed at them both. We need to decide, the CEO said. Either you two issue a joint apology, or we make a formal announcement addressing artistic disagreements. An apology for what? Taehyung snapped. For being human? For being unfiltered, the PR head replied. Which the world sees as unprofessional. Jungkook stepped forward. I'm not apologizing for crying. We're not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Jungkook's voice was ice. Control, the CEO replied. Containment, clean edges, no mess. Taehyung stood beside Jungkook now, his voice steel. We're not machines. We bleed. We break. And the world doesn't want to see that, the CEO countered. Then maybe the world should grow up. Jungkook muttered. There was silence again. Then, without permission, Taehyung pulled out his phone. Don't post anything, the PR head warned. But it was too late. Taehyung was already recording. He looked straight into the lens, his voice calm, eyes stormy. To every army who's watched that video, I want you to know something. Jungkook is not weak for feeling. I'm not cold for walking away. We're brothers. And sometimes, brothers fight. But that moment you saw? That wasn't about hate. That was about pain. Real pain. He passed the phone to Jungkook. Jungkook stared at it. At first, he hesitated. Then he pressed record and said, We're not perfect, but we've never lied to you. This is our truth. Unscripted. He ended the recording and pressed upload. PR panicked. The CEO stared in disbelief. But something shifted. Not in the room. In them. They walked out shoulder to shoulder. Not fixed. But finally, for once, not hiding anymore. The video detonated online like a grenade without a pin. Within minutes, the phrase unscripted truth began trending globally. Fans reacted in waves, first shock, then silence, then a flood of emotions. Some cried, some raged. Some posted support with shaking fingers, finally feeling like they were allowed to see the boys as more than flawless icons. But not everyone took it as honesty. Within hours, headlines twisted their words. Jungkook breaks down over fractured BTS brotherhood. Taehyung refuses to apologize, claims, We're not machines. Is this the beginning of the end for BTS? By morning, media outlets were split like a fault line. Western press praised their bravery. Korean headlines questioned their discipline. And behind closed doors, their label was in damage control overdrive. Yet, amid the media hurricane, Jungkook and Taehyung sat across from each other in the rehearsal studio again. No cameras, no stylists, no noise. Just them, and the air between them tight and alive. Taehyung broke the silence first. You do realize what we've done, right? Jungkook nodded. Yeah. We told the truth. Taehyung exhaled, running a hand through his hair. They're calling me arrogant. They're calling me weak, Jungkook replied. So, I guess we're even. Taehyung laughed. It was bitter. Then Jungkook added, But for once, I don't regret it. Taehyung looked at him. Really looked. As if trying to remember something from long ago, the boy who sang in corners, who clung to his mic like it was oxygen. That version of Jungkook still lived behind his eyes. I don't regret it either, Taehyung admitted, softer this time. But it's not over. The label wants another meeting. They're talking about splitting the schedules. Jungkook stiffened. What do you mean? Separate appearances. At least for a while, Taehyung said, eyes unreadable. Less interaction. Less risk. So we're being punished for being real? Controlled, Taehyung corrected. We're being controlled again. Jungkook stood up, pacing now, his jaw tight. No, I'm not doing that. I'm not playing pretend again. They'll say it's temporary. It always starts as temporary. Taehyung remained seated. What do you want to do then? Jungkook turned, face flushed with frustration. I want to perform with you, like we always have. Without the script, without the lie. Just music. Taehyung's eyes flinched. Then say it to them. I will. Taehyung nodded, slowly. Then I'll stand next to you. Later that day, they were called into the boardroom again. But this time, the atmosphere had changed. The executive team looked tired, wary, like men who'd lost control of their narrative. The CEO didn't even greet them. We've got sponsors threatening to pull out. Partnerships delayed. Your clip might have given you public sympathy, but it's damaged our stability. Jungkook remained standing. I understand, he said. But I won't apologize for telling the truth. You already did that with the video, the CEO said coldly. But now we need to move forward. We're restructuring promo appearances for the next 3 weeks. Separate schedules. Taehyung will promote in Japan. You'll handle LA. No, Jungkook said sharply. The table stilled. I won't go if he's not there. I won't sit in another fake interview and smile when I feel like I'm dying inside. Taehyung rose now too. We'll do the promotions, he said, but together. Or not at all. You're not in a position to make demands, the CEO snapped. Then fire us, Jungkook said. Right now. The room gasped. But the CEO just glared. You wouldn't dare. Taehyung smiled, not kindly. You think we stayed this long because we were afraid? We stayed because we believed, Jungkook added. In BTS. In each other. And now? The CEO asked. Jungkook looked at Taehyung, and Taehyung answered for them both. Now, we believe in truth. There was no shouting after that. Just silence. But it was the kind of silence that comes after a line is crossed. A silence that warns of war. 2 hours later, they walked out of the building, past reporters and blinking cameras. Neither spoke. Until they reached the car. Did you mean it? Taehyung asked, voice low. Which part? The fire. Us part. Jungkook looked ahead. Every word. Taehyung gave a bitter chuckle. You've changed. So have you. Not sure if that's good or bad. Jungkook turned to him. Maybe it's both. Maybe we had to fall apart to find the version of us that actually meant something. They didn't go to the hotel. Instead, they went to Namjoon's apartment, where the other members were waiting. Yoongi leaned on the wall, arms crossed. Jimin sat on the couch, looking like he hadn't slept. Jin had a bowl of fruit in his hand and a storm in his eyes. You two, Jin started, just broke the internet. Good, Jungkook said. Yoongi walked forward. And you finally said what we've all wanted to say for years? Jimin nodded. But now, things are going to get ugly. Taehyung smiled grimly. Let them. Namjoon spoke last. So what do we do now? Jungkook looked around and finally said, we stop being performers and start being a family again. The meeting was held in a private villa on the outskirts of Seoul neutral ground, according to management. A place without microphones, without flashing lights, without staff members hovering at the corners with earpieces and fabricated smiles. Just a single oak table in the center of a sunlit room, surrounded by 7 chairs. But Jungkook and Taehyung noticed it immediately. Only 5 names were on the printed schedule. Jin, Yoongi, Jimin, Hoseok, Namjoon. No Jungkook, no Taehyung. Jungkook stared at the paper. What is this? A manager cleared his throat. The meeting today is between the company and the 5 remaining members. Remaining? Taehyung echoed, his tone laced with venom. You make it sound like we died. The PR head stepped forward. No one is removing you. But after recent incidents, we've chosen to proceed with discussions that concern the group's stability. We'll loop you in later. That's not how this works, Jungkook said. We are the group, Taehyung added. Yoongi stood up without a word, took the paper, crumpled it, and threw it into the waste bin across the room. It landed with a hollow thud. If they don't sit, we don't sit, Yoongi said. Jimin looked at Namjoon. Namjoon was already rising. This isn't how families solve things, Namjoon said. This is how corporations deflect. A wave of tension passed through the room. The PR head tried to salvage the tone. This isn't personal. You're damn right it's not, Jungkook cut in. Because if it were, you'd realize we've been bleeding for this group since we were kids. And now you're acting like we're liabilities. Silence. Then Hoseok, who had been quiet the whole time, whispered, "What do you want from us? To pick sides?" Taehyung stepped closer. "We want you to remember why we started, why we built all this. Because lately it feels like we're not even allowed to speak unless it fits the script." Jin placed his fruit down. "I've watched the two of you burn," he said. "And I've stayed silent because I thought time would fix it. But time doesn't heal what management keeps reopening." The PR head interjected, desperate. "Please, this meeting is supposed to—" "You're done," Namjoon said. He turned to Jungkook and Taehyung. "Let's go." They left the villa, all seven. Outside, the press was already waiting. Because of course they were. Flashes exploded. Questions were screamed. Is BTS breaking up? Did Taehyung get suspended? Is Jungkook filing a legal claim against Hybe? None of them answered. Until they were in the van. And even then, the silence was too loud. Jungkook was the first to speak. "They never saw us as real. Just pieces of something they could polish and parade." Taehyung leaned against the window. "You know what hurts the most?" "What?" "That I used to believe the contract protected us." Yoongi snorted. "The contract wasn't written for friends. It was written to bind labor." Jimin sighed. "So what do we do now? We've poked the beast." Jin looked out the front windshield. "Now we figure out if it has teeth." When they reached the dorm later that night, yes, the dorm, the old one they hadn't slept in together since 2018, something unspoken passed between them. A return, a reckoning. The couches were still ugly, the paint still chipped, but it felt real. They sat in the living room, cross-legged like teenagers again, passing around a bottle of soju none of them really wanted to drink, until Namjoon pulled out the box, the one they all forgot existed, filled with photos, tour passes, notes, scribbled lyrics, worn-out backstage passes. Jungkook picked up a picture of him and Taehyung at a Tokyo soundcheck laughing. Mid-motion, no cameras, just joy. "I miss this," he said. "We all do," Jimin replied. Taehyung took the picture gently. "You think we can ever get back to this?" Yoongi answered. "No, but maybe we can build something new that doesn't need hiding." The TV in the background played muted footage of their press conference clip on a loop. Over and over. Taehyung's words. "We're not machines. We bleed. We break." Then Jungkook's face, that final line. "This is our truth." Unscripted. Suddenly, a buzz. A message from their legal team. "Urgent. Please be advised that your personal contracts may be subject to review if further unsanctioned public statements are made. Please consult us before further interviews." Taehyung laughed, dry and sharp. "They're trying to silence us again." "No," Jungkook said, rising to his feet. "They're trying to scare us." Namjoon stood too. "Well, maybe it's time they realized we're not kids anymore." Yoongi grabbed his phone. "I know a journalist." Jin raised a brow. "A real one?" "The kind who doesn't flinch." Jungkook's pulse quickened. "You're serious?" "If we don't tell our story," Yoongi said, "they'll write it for us." Taehyung stepped forward. "Then let's make sure the story is ours." Later that night, the call was made. Anonymous location. No cameras. No stylist. Just words. Just truth. And for the first time in years, they didn't feel like idols. They felt like people again. The rain hadn't stopped all night. It pounded against the windows of the anonymous cafe where Jungkook, Taehyung, and Yoongi sat, disguised in oversized hoodies and tinted sunglasses. The city moved outside them like a blurred movie lights flickering, umbrellas swaying. 1,000 lives oblivious to the fact that 3 of Korea's most watched idols were about to ignite their careers with a truth no one approved. The journalist arrived late. Female, calm, sharp-eyed, carried no laptop, only a black leather notebook and a pen she didn't touch for the first 15 minutes. She simply listened as Jungkook recounted the build-up to the stage incident, and Taehyung filled in the cracks of silence with the tension that had been eating their brotherhood from the inside out. Yoongi didn't speak until halfway through. "You publish this, you'll get calls. Lawsuits. Threats. I'm used to threats, she replied. But this story, it needs to be airtight. It's not a story, Jungkook said. It's our blood. She nodded once. Then let's make sure they feel every drop. When the interview ended, she left behind no trace of their meeting. No bill, no card, no confirmation. Just a single line whispered before stepping into the rain. You have 2 days. Then I publish. The silence afterward was suffocating, until Taehyung muttered, "We can't go back after this." Jungkook turned to him, voice barely above a whisper. "Did you want to?" Taehyung looked away. They didn't go home that night. Instead, they ended up back at the dorm. Again, not out of nostalgia this time, but because nowhere else felt real anymore. The air inside was stale, but safe. The old posters were still on the walls worn, curling at the edges, like their youth had fossilized into the paint. Namjoon, Jimin, Hoseok, and Jin were already there, waiting. Yoongi walked in first, dropped his hoodie on the chair, and said, "She's running it." No one spoke for a moment. Then Jin, arms crossed, replied, "Then we better be ready." Namjoon's voice was calm, but clipped. "The company sent a revised contract to my lawyer today." Taehyung looked up. "Revised?" "They're offering mental health sabbaticals, but with a media silence clause. In exchange for rest, they want obedience." Jungkook snorted, "Rest or exile?" "They're scared," Jimin said, "of what we'll say next." "They should be," Yoongi muttered. But just as the air began to settle into agreement, something unexpected broke it. A notification. Taehyung's phone buzzed first, then Jungkook's, then Jimin's. One by one, phones lit up with a message neither of them expected to see. A leaked video. Security camera footage from inside the conference room 2 weeks ago, the exact moment Jungkook had stood and said, "Then fire us." And Taehyung replied, "Now we believe in truth." It had been recorded illegally. Worse, it had been posted anonymously to an international fan forum. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Clips on TikTok, threads on X, translations in 6 languages, commentaries dissecting every body movement, every vocal tone, every eye twitch. They sat in stunned silence, each of them watching the footage that had never been meant to leave that room. Jungkook whispered, "That was supposed to be private." Taehyung stared at the screen. "Someone inside the company leaked it to make us look unstable." Jin stood abruptly. "This is war." Namjoon grabbed his phone. "We need to get ahead of this before the narrative twists again." "Too late," Hoseok muttered, scrolling. "They're already framing it as a rebellion, calling us ungrateful idols biting the hand that fed them." Jimin added, "Hashtags are splitting the fandom again. Some are calling us brave. Others think we're breaking up." Yoongi looked around the room, eyes sharper than ever. "Then maybe it's time we tell them exactly what we're not." They didn't sleep, not even a minute. By dawn, they had a plan. A live stream, 1 room, 7 chairs, no scripts, no management. Taehyung was the first to suggest it. "If they want real, let's give it to them unedited, messy, painful." Jungkook hesitated. "Do you really think the others will agree to this?" But one by one, the others nodded. Namjoon spoke last. "We've spent a decade being shaped. Maybe it's time we shape ourselves." The live stream was scheduled in complete secrecy. No promotions, no teaser, just a single tweet from the official BTS account. "Tonight, 1 room, 7 truths." When the live stream started, the view count exploded instantly. Hundreds of thousands joined within seconds. Then millions. Armies held their breath. The camera showed all 7 of them, seated in a circle, not behind a desk, not on a stage, but in their dorm living room, knees touching, eyes heavy, hands fidgeting. Jungkook spoke first. "I'm not okay, and I haven't been for a while." Taehyung followed. "And I didn't know how to be there for him without breaking myself too." Namjoon's voice cut through next. "We're still BTS. But BTS isn't just music. It's pain. It's survival. It's us." Yoongi, calm as ever, leaned forward. "They say we're ungrateful. But you don't owe gratitude to chains." Jimin looked straight at the camera. "We're not breaking up, but we are breaking patterns." Hoseok added, "We might lose things after this. Deals, support, fame. But if we don't do this now, we lose ourselves. And finally, Jin, his voice slow, deliberate, and razor-sharp, said, "This is not a scandal. This is a healing." They didn't cry. Not on camera, but their voices cracked. Their hands shook. And when it ended, the screen went black without a goodbye. But the world didn't move on, because that night, something rare happened. They weren't idols. They were human. The morning after the live stream wasn't quiet. It was violent. Not in the way fists fly or doors slam, but in the way the world responds when illusions are shattered. Headlines screamed in all caps. Stock prices trembled. Sponsors panicked. Boardrooms filled with trembling fingers and raised voices. Hybe's building was locked down by noon. Internal calls went unanswered. Executives vanished behind tinted glass. Every department buzzed with crisis protocol. The PR team scrambled like soldiers on a sinking ship. But the damage wasn't physical. It was ideological. The company had spent a decade building perfection. And last night, 7 men tore it down in under an hour. Taehyung sat on the floor of his living room, phone silent for once. It was eerie. No alarms, no reminders, no staff barking orders through Bluetooth. He stared at the wall, then at the empty spot beside him. Jungkook hadn't called, hadn't messaged, hadn't even liked a single post. He didn't know whether to feel relieved or abandoned. Then the knock came. Not a buzz, not a doorbell, just 3 sharp knocks. Taehyung stood up slowly, every step through the quiet apartment feeling like walking through fog. He opened the door, and Jungkook stood there, hoodie on, face pale, eyes rimmed red like he hadn't slept, like he had walked all night with guilt as his only luggage. Taehyung said nothing, neither did Jungkook. They stared for a full minute before Taehyung stepped aside. Jungkook entered. The door clicked shut behind him, and somehow that sound was louder than anything they'd said to each other in the past week. "I thought you'd be mad," Jungkook said finally. "I was," Taehyung replied. "Then I watched the live stream again." Jungkook lowered his head. "We said too much, or not enough." Jungkook sat down. His hands were shaking slightly. "Hyung, don't apologize," Taehyung cut him off. "We're past that." Jungkook looked up. "Then what do we do?" Taehyung sat across from him, their knees brushing. "We keep going, together, but no more pretending." Jungkook exhaled. "That's what scares me." Taehyung nodded. "Me too." Suddenly, Jungkook stood and walked to the window. Outside, press vans lined the street. Drones buzzed in the sky. The world had devoured their vulnerability, and now circled for more. "They want blood," he said. "Then they came to the wrong place," Taehyung answered. A moment passed. Then Jungkook turned, voice tight. "Do you ever regret it?" Taehyung blinked. "What?" "Us. Being close. Being this close." Taehyung looked away. "Every time they use you against me. Every time I feel you slipping and can't say anything. Every time I hurt you on stage just to stop myself from hurting off it." Silence. Then he met Jungkook's eyes. "But I'd rather regret being close than live with the regret of never having you at all." Jungkook looked like he was about to cry, but he didn't. He smiled. Broken. Small. Real. That night, all 7 met again. This time not in secret, not in a dorm. In Hybe's boardroom, uninvited. They walked in without knocking. Security didn't stop them. No one dared. The executives looked up from their laptops, shocked into silence. Namjoon stepped forward. "We need to talk." The CEO stood, red-faced. "After the circus you pulled, there's nothing left to discuss." Yoongi sat down. "Then sit and listen. We made this company," Jin said calmly. "Before the charts. Before the brands. Before your billion-dollar evaluations. You want to renegotiate?" the CEO barked. "No," Jungkook said. "We want to rewrite everything," Taehyung followed. "Starting with transparency, creative control, and no more gag orders." The room erupted. Executives shouted over one another. One demanded suspension. Another screamed about liabilities. "You think the fans will protect you forever?" one man sneered. "They love you now, but they'll forget you." Jungkook stepped forward. "They didn't fall in love with our perfection. They fell in love with our truth." Namjoon placed a flash drive on the table. "On this is every unreleased demo, lyric sheet, voice memo, and video we've made in the past 2 years. All of it off the record. If you try to silence us again, we'll release it. You're blackmailing us? No, Jimin said coldly. We're protecting ourselves. The CEO sat down, suddenly quiet, and then he laughed. Fine, you want to burn everything down? Go ahead. But if one of you falls just one, this all collapses. You're only strong together. Taehyung stepped closer and said the line that no one ever expected to hear from him. If one falls, we all do. But at least we'll fall as brothers, not puppets. Jungkook looked at him. That was the moment the past cracked open. The moment everything unsaid became real again. They left the room with no signatures, no deals, but with power. And outside, millions of fans watched. Armies didn't ask for silence anymore. They asked for honesty. And that night, for the first time in years, BTS gave them everything. The night sky above Seoul was ink black and heavy with rain clouds. The kind of night where the city never truly sleeps, but instead holds its breath. Jungkook stood alone on the rooftop of their old rehearsal building, the sound of distant traffic humming below, his hood pulled over his head. He had always come here when the noise in his head got too loud. This time, the noise wasn't just inside him, it was the entire world screaming. The live stream, the leaked footage, the meeting with the CEO. It had turned their lives upside down in less than 72 hours. This wasn't a scandal anymore. It was a movement. The door behind him opened with a groan, letting out a flood of warm light against the cold night air. Taehyung stepped out, umbrella in one hand, the other tucked inside his coat. He didn't say anything. He just walked up beside Jungkook, opened the umbrella over both of them, and stared out at the sprawling city below. For a moment, neither of them breathed. Yoongi's talking to the legal team, Taehyung said quietly. Jungkook kept his eyes on the skyline. And they're ready if the company tries to sue. Jungkook's jaw tightened. So it's really happening. It's already happening. Thunder rumbled far away. Jungkook shifted his weight, finally turning to look at him. Do you think we're doing the right thing? Taehyung met his gaze steadily. If telling the truth is wrong, then I don't want to be right anymore. Jungkook let out a shaky laugh. That sounds like something you'd say during a fan meeting. I mean it this time, Taehyung said, voice rougher now. I'm done being their version of me. I want to be mine, even if it costs everything. Jungkook swallowed hard. Even us? Taehyung didn't flinch. Especially us. Downstairs, the rest of the members were gathered in the practice room. It felt like a war room now, tables covered in laptops, legal folders, cold takeout boxes. Namjoon was pacing like a general before battle. Jin leaned back on the couch with his arms crossed. Yoongi sat hunched over a pile of documents. Jimin and Hoseok scrolling through endless feeds of real-time fan reactions. The door opened, and Taehyung and Jungkook walked in, water dripping from their hair and clothes. Yoongi didn't even look up. The world's losing its mind, he muttered. Namjoon stopped pacing. Hybe released a statement. Everyone froze. Jimin spoke first. What did they say? Namjoon read from his phone, voice clipped and cold. They're deeply concerned about the current situation surrounding BTS. They're committed to protecting the group's legacy, and they're evaluating options for the future. Jungkook frowned. Evaluating options. That means punishment. Or control, Yoongi added. They're going to try to break us from the inside. Jin's eyes narrowed. Then they're idiots. We're unbreakable. They don't need to break all of us, Taehyung said. They just need to break one. The room went quiet after that. A thick, suffocating quiet. Because everyone knew he was right. Namjoon finally exhaled. They'll target Jungkook first. Jungkook's head snapped up. Why me? Because you're the center, Jimin said gently. You're the face, the golden one. If they turn the narrative against you, they turn the world against us. Jungkook's throat went dry. I won't let them. They won't ask your permission, Yoongi said flatly. Taehyung stepped forward. Then they'll have to go through me. The temperature in the room shifted. It was subtle but undeniable. A quiet, burning loyalty simmered beneath their anger. Jungkook took a step closer to Taehyung. You don't have to protect me. Yes, I do, Taehyung said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was final. Because I didn't protect you that night on stage, and I'll live with that. But I won't let them do it to you again. Jungkook clenched his fists. Hyung, I'm not your shield anymore, Taehyung said, his eyes steady. I'm your equal. Yoongi suddenly slammed his palm on the table, startling everyone. Enough with the guilt speeches. We either go down together or we don't go down at all. Namjoon nodded. We need to hit first. Jin raised a brow. Hit how? Expose what they've done to us behind the curtain, Namjoon said. All the manipulation, the silencing, the contracts. If they want a war, let's give them one. Jimin hesitated. That means no way back. Jungkook looked around at the faces of the men he had spent more than half his life with. This wasn't a band anymore. This was family. Broken, bruised, but unyielding. There's no going back anyway, Jungkook said. Hours later, the plan was set. Not through lawyers, not through PR, through themselves. A press conference, but not the kind they'd been dragged into all their careers. This one would be unscripted. Broadcast live, no labels, no management. But the company was faster than expected. An hour before their planned announcement, Jungkook received a call. A blocked number. He hesitated before answering. John Jungkook, a familiar voice rasped. The CEO. Jungkook said nothing. I hope you understand what you're doing, the man continued. This isn't just about you. It's about the entire empire we built. The fans, the shareholders, the industry. You built an empire on silence, Jungkook said. And you think you can burn it down and still walk away clean? The man laughed. Do you really think Taehyung will be there when everything collapses? Do you think any of them will? Jungkook's grip on the phone tightened. We're not scared of you anymore. Then I'll remind you why you should be, the CEO whispered. You're not a free man. None of you are. Jungkook hung up. When he walked back into the room, the others saw the color drained from his face. What did he say? Taehyung asked. Jungkook met his eyes. He's going to try to split us. Taehyung walked up, resting a firm hand on his shoulder. Then we hold on tighter. That night, the world waited again. Cameras clicked. Streams went live. Millions of army hearts pulsed on the same frequency. 7 men walked onto a small stage with no backdrop, no flashing lights, no grand music, just them. Jungkook stepped to the microphone. He could feel the weight of everything pressing against his chest. The expectations, the fear, the love, the betrayal, and Taehyung standing just behind him like gravity itself. He took a breath. This might be the last time we stand here as you've known us, he said. But it's the first time we're standing as ourselves. Taehyung stepped up beside him, shoulders brushing. And for the first time since everything began, Jungkook didn't feel alone. And somewhere, deep in the headquarters of a billion-dollar company, someone realized they no longer owned the story. It now belonged to the 7 men who lived it. The silence, after Jungkook's final words at the press conference, was suffocating. The camera cut, the live stream ended, and the lights dimmed, yet no one in the room moved. No applause, no breath. Just 7 men standing shoulder to shoulder, drenched in raw vulnerability, knowing that whatever came next could either break or free them completely. Taehyung leaned in toward Jungkook's ear, his voice almost a whisper. Whatever happens after this, don't flinch. Jungkook gave a small nod, jaw clenched, chest rising and falling rapidly. I won't, not if you're still next to me. Behind them, the sound of doors swinging open echoed like thunder. Hybe's legal team walked in first faces, stiff, tablets in hand, followed by senior executives, and finally, the CEO. The atmosphere changed instantly. Whatever warmth had once existed between artist and label had long turned to ice. We gave you time, the CEO said without greeting. You chose to light a match instead. Jin was the one to step forward. We chose the truth. You chose drama. You chose silence, Yoongi snapped back. Every time we tried to speak up, you shut the door. The CEO didn't blink. You knew the rules. Taehyung laughed bitterly. No, we followed the rules you kept rewriting every time we came close to real freedom. Namjoon took out a folder from his jacket, thick, worn, stained with notes and tabs. These are copies of every clause, amendment, and verbal restriction we've had imposed on us since 2015. We've had legal experts go through all of it. You think you've built a fortress around us, but you left cracks. And we're walking through them. Is this a declaration of war? One of the executives asked, scoffing. No, Jungkook said, stepping forward. This is a declaration of independence. You walk away now, the CEO warned. you lose everything. Then we rebuild it ourselves, Taehyung replied. No lights, no contracts, just us. The CEO approached them, calm, but with venom behind his smile. You really think fans will stick by you after this? You think the industry will let you live without control? You think you'll survive the weight of what it means to be free? Jungkook took one long look at the man in front of him, the one who had once handed him his dream and now wanted to hold it hostage. You don't understand. We were already dying under your protection. Taehyung reached for Jungkook's hand, not for the cameras, not for the fans. Just because in that moment, the only anchor he had was the person beside him, who had bled through the same fire. We're not perfect, Taehyung said quietly. We never promised to be. The CEO turned, disgusted. Fine. Then let the world eat you alive. And he walked out. For a moment, the door's slam reverberated like a gunshot. No one moved, until Jimin said softly, It's done. Yoongi chuckled. No, it's starting. Jungkook turned to the others. Do we really do this? No company, no label, just BTS? Namjoon smiled. Just BTS. The following week passed in chaos. Headlines battled for oxygen. Sponsors pulled out. Distributors hesitated. The global media tried desperately to spin the narrative. Betrayal, arrogance, career suicide. But something they didn't expect began to swell beneath the surface. Armies didn't scatter. They mobilized. Fan accounts translated every moment of the press conference into dozens of languages. Hashtags like number BTS Unfiltered and number We Stand With Bangtan trended non-stop. Videos of old interviews resurfaced moments where the members had hinted at exhaustion, at censorship, at wanting more. Fans connected the dots. They saw the years of suppression, and they chose to believe them, to stand with them, to fight with them. One by one, brands that had pulled out started to reverse their decisions. A coffee company tweeted, Real honesty is stronger than any script. We'll wait. A fashion house reposted a photo of Taehyung with a caption, Authenticity never goes out of style. By the 10th day, their official account posted a single image, 7 shadows. No caption. 30 million likes in 1 hour. Back in Seoul, the boys sat around the dorm's dining table. No stylists, no lighting crew. Just leftovers from convenience stores and a speaker playing old BTS demos. Jin raised his beer. To insanity. To freedom, Jimin added. To fear, Hoseok said with a grin. Because it means we're doing something right, Yoongi nodded. To every broken rule. Namjoon looked around, then raised his glass. To the next chapter. And Jungkook, eyes flicking toward Taehyung, whispered just loud enough for the group to hear. To us. They clinked glasses. That night, they weren't legends. They weren't idols. They weren't global superstars. They were 7 boys who had chosen truth over comfort, brotherhood over business, fire over silence. And as they laughed, tired, worn, emotionally shredded, Taehyung leaned in, voice barely audible against the hum of an old demo playing in the background. I'm proud of you, he said. Jungkook blinked. Why? Because you didn't run. You stood. Jungkook looked down, then met his eyes again. You gave me a reason to. They didn't hug. They didn't cry. They didn't need to. Some bonds are louder in silence.